I never planned on this happening. Honestly, if you'd asked me just a week ago if I'd ever let someone put makeup on me, I would have laughed and shaken my head. That's not me. That's not who I am. Or at least, I thought it wasn't. But then there I was sitting in front of a mirror. My reflection didn't even look like mine anymore. My skin seemed smoother. My eyes were brighter, framed by long lashes I didn't know I could have. My lips had color. Real color. And in that moment my heart was pounding so fast I could hardly breathe. She was standing behind me, smiling like she knew some secret I hadn't figured out yet. "See," she whispered softly. "Told you. You're beautiful." And the strange thing is, I believed her. I should have been embarrassed. I should have pushed it all away. But I didn't. I couldn't. Because deep inside something stirred. Something I hadn't wanted to face. Something that felt both terrifying and right. That night didn't start with me asking to be transformed. It didn't start with me secretly wishing to look pretty. No. It began much more innocently than that. A small moment. A casual suggestion. A laugh between friends that somehow slipped into something far more real. And now when I think back on it, I wonder if she planned this from the start. The whole thing began on a Saturday evening that felt as ordinary as any other. I was at her apartment again, like I usually was on weekends. She had this little place on the second floor of an old brick building, the kind with creaky wooden floors and windows that let in the last blush of sunset. Her space always felt warm, not just from the strings of fairy lights she never bothered to take down after Christmas, but because it smelled faintly of vanilla candles and the lavender lotion she used. We'd been friends for a while. Comfortable friends. The kind who didn't need to impress each other anymore. I'd flop on her couch in an old hoodie, she'd tie her hair up in a messy bun, and we'd order food and complain about life. She teased me often, and I teased her back. That rhythm was familiar. Safe. But that night, something in the air felt different. She was sitting cross-legged on the rug, surrounded by a scatter of brushes, palettes, and tiny bottles. I remember raising an eyebrow. "You're setting up an art studio or something?" She grinned without looking up. "Better. I'm organizing my makeup. Don't judge." "Not judging," I said, leaning back against the couch. "But seriously, how do you even know what half of those things do?" She lifted a tube of lipstick and turned it in the light. "That's the fun part. You don't always need to know. You just try." Then her eyes flicked up at me. Something playful glimmered there, though I didn't think much of it at the time. I shrugged. "Guess that's one mystery of the universe I'll never solve." "You never know," she said casually, almost too casually. "Maybe one day you'll get a makeover and you'll finally understand." I laughed. "Yeah, right." She tilted her head, studying me the way she did when she was plotting some scheme. It made me nervous in the best way. "What? You think I couldn't make you look amazing?" "That's not what I said." "Then what are you afraid of?" The question caught me off guard. Afraid. The word stuck in my throat. I wasn't afraid. At least that's what I told myself. But the way she looked at me, like she could see right through me, made me shift uncomfortably. "I'm not afraid," I muttered. She smiled slowly, like she'd just won a silent argument. "Good. Then you won't mind if I prove it someday." I tried to laugh it off, but inside something tightened. The thought of her brushing colors across my skin, of her hands so close, of me sitting still while she worked, why did it suddenly feel so real? To change the subject, I grabbed a slice of pizza from the box between us. "Focus on your own face, Picasso." But she didn't. Not really. I noticed the way she glanced at me every so often, her lips twitching like she was holding back another comment. And each time she did, my chest gave this nervous little flutter. It was just a normal night between friends. At least that's what I kept telling myself. But later, when I left her place and walked home through the quiet streets, the air cool against my cheeks, I couldn't stop replaying her words. What are you afraid of? The week that followed was nothing out of the ordinary. Work, commute, evenings wasted scrolling through my phone. But every now and then, her voice would echo in my head. What are you afraid of? I didn't have an answer. By Friday night, I found myself at her apartment again. It was almost a ritual now. I'd knock, she'd yell "come in" from somewhere inside, and I'd step into her world of fairy lights and scattered cushions. That night she had music playing, something low and jazzy, and her coffee table was once again covered with the same mysterious collection of powders and brushes. Deja vu, I joked, closing the door behind me. She looked up, grinning. Deja makeup. I groaned at the pun, but she just patted the rug beside her. Sit. You're keeping me company while I practice. Practice what? Eyeliner. The one skill I'll probably never master. Unless, her eyes flicked toward me with that same playful glimmer. I get a volunteer. I froze mid-step. No way. She tilted her head, feigning innocence. Why not? You've got the perfect canvas. Canvas? I laughed nervously. I'm not a canvas. I'm chicken, she teased. I shot her a look, but she only smirked and went back to organizing her tools. Still, the word hung in the air, sharp and daring. Chicken. I sank onto the couch, pretending to scroll through my phone. But my eyes kept wandering to her. The way she held each brush with care. The way she hummed under her breath, completely focused. She looked happy, like this was her art. At some point she sighed dramatically. You know, I've been dying to try this shade on someone. She held up a small palette and fanned the colors like they were treasure. But none of my friends will let me. I shrugged without looking up. Maybe that's a sign. Or maybe, her voice dropped softer. Maybe you're secretly curious but too stubborn to admit it. I nearly dropped my phone. My throat went dry, and I prayed she didn't notice the heat crawling up my neck. Not curious, I muttered quickly. Just, not my thing. The way she hummed it told me she didn't believe me. Or maybe she just enjoyed watching me squirm. Either way, she let it go, turning back to her little project. The rest of the evening passed in the usual blur of pizza, random conversations, and her endless playlist. But even as I laughed at her terrible jokes, I couldn't shake the feeling that something had shifted. That she'd planted a seed. And whether I liked it or not, it was growing. The next day, I caught myself standing in front of the bathroom mirror longer than usual. I leaned closer, studying my reflection. My eyes. My jawline. My lips. Things I'd never really thought about before. For the first time, I wondered what would it look like. If she brushed color across my skin, if she shaped me into something softer, something prettier, would I even recognize myself? I shook my head quickly, embarrassed at my own thoughts. That wasn't me. I wasn't that kind of person. Still, when I showed up at her place the following weekend, I felt different. Nervous. Expectant. Like maybe, just maybe, I knew what was coming. Sure enough, her coffee table was once again buried under makeup. Seriously? I said, kicking off my shoes. You live in Sephora now? She laughed. Practice makes perfect. And lucky for me, My favorite canvas just walked in. I froze in the doorway. Nope. Not happening. But she didn't argue. She didn't beg or push. She just smiled knowingly and went back to her brushes. That's fine. I'll wait. Those words sent a shiver through me. I'll wait. Like she was certain I'd give in eventually. And the scary part? Some small hidden part of me already knew she was right. That night dragged on with the usual comfort of friendship, but the tension was there now, unspoken, humming beneath every word. When I left her apartment, the city lights glowing in the distance, I caught my reflection in a shop window. I stopped, looked twice, and for just a fleeting second, I wondered what it would take for that reflection to change. That's when I realized the truth. I wasn't afraid of makeup. I was afraid of what it might reveal. It happened on a rainy evening. The kind where the streets glistened like black glass and the sound of water hitting the windows made her apartment feel smaller, cozier, almost like the world outside had vanished. I showed up soaked, shaking my umbrella dry in her hallway. She tossed me a towel and laughed at the sight of my damp hoodie clinging to me. "You're a mess," she said. "Thanks," I muttered, rubbing my hair. She smirked. "Don't worry. I'll fix you." Normally that would have meant shoving a blanket at me or making hot chocolate. But this time, when I followed her into the living room, I froze. The coffee table wasn't just scattered with makeup, it was covered. Bottles, brushes, palettes, sponges, little jars of shimmering powder. It looked less like her casual hobby and more like she'd prepared for something. I raised an eyebrow. "Planning a wedding I don't know about?" She grinned. "Nope. Just a makeover night. I figured if the storm's keeping us in, we might as well have fun." "Fun for who?" I asked, suspicion creeping into my voice. "For both of us," she replied smoothly. Then, without missing a beat, "Sit down." I laughed nervously. "No way." She crossed her arms and tilted her head, giving me that look she always used when she knew she had leverage. "Come on. You've been dodging this for weeks. One time. That's all I'm asking." I hesitated, glancing at the mirror propped against the wall. The rain outside blurred the city lights into hazy smears of gold and silver, and for a moment the whole scene felt unreal. Like maybe if I agreed, the world beyond that room wouldn't matter. "Why me?" I asked softly. Her expression softened. "Because you'd look amazing. And because I think you need it more than you realize." That line hit harder than I expected. Need it? What did she mean? I opened my mouth to protest, but the words tangled in my throat. She must have seen my hesitation, because her smile turned mischievous again. "Tell you what. If you sit still and let me do just one thing, just eyeliner, I'll owe you. Anything you want. Deal?" I tried to laugh it off, but my chest tightened. She was giving me an out. A trade. A way to say yes without admitting I wanted to. "Eyeliner," I said slowly. "That's it. Nothing more. Pinky promise." She held out her hand. I stared at it. My heart pounded louder than the rain. And before I could stop myself, I hooked my pinky around hers. "Deal," I whispered. Her grin widened. "Knew it." She guided me to sit on the floor across from her. I felt ridiculous, but when she leaned in, holding the little pencil steady, all my nerves funneled into that one moment. Her hand brushed my cheek, gentle but firm. "Look up," she murmured. I obeyed. My breath hitched. The tip of the eyeliner glided along my lashes, leaving a faint trace of black. My instinct was to flinch, to shut my eyes, to pull away, but I didn't. Her touch anchored me. "Almost there," she whispered. And then it was done. I blinked, my eyes watering slightly, and she leaned back to admire her work. A satisfied smile curved her lips. "There," she said softly. "Now look." She angled the mirror toward me. I froze. It was subtle, almost nothing really, just a line above my lashes, but the difference was undeniable. My eyes looked sharper, brighter, almost mysterious. Not the same tired face I saw every morning. Someone else. Someone I barely recognized. And for the first time, instead of laughing it off, I just stared. She knelt behind me, resting her chin on my shoulder. Her reflection hovered close to mine, her smile faint but knowing. "Told you," she whispered. "Beautiful." The word sank deep into me, spreading warmth and panic all at once. My throat felt tight. I wanted to look away, but I couldn't. That was the moment. The shift. The storm outside raged on, but the real storm had already begun inside me. I don't know how long I sat there, staring at the reflection in silence. The eyeliner was so slight, so ordinary, yet it felt like I was looking at someone new. Someone I didn't know existed. She must have sensed the storm brewing in my head, because she didn't tease me this time. She just rested her hand lightly on my shoulder and said, almost gently, "See? Not so scary." I swallowed hard. "It's weird. Weird good." I hesitated. My lips parted, but no sound came out. Eventually, I shrugged. Maybe. That was enough for her. Her grin widened. "Well, if eyeliner didn't kill you, then we're halfway there." "Halfway to what?" "Transformation," she said with mock drama, spreading her arms like a magician revealing a trick. I rolled my eyes, but it was half-hearted. Deep down I knew I should have stood up, wiped it off, and ended the game right there. But instead, I stayed sitting cross-legged on the rug, heart racing, pretending I wasn't curious about what would happen next. She tapped her chin thoughtfully. "Okay. Let's make a deal. One more thing. If you hate it, I'll stop. No questions, no pushing. Promise." My chest tightened. "One more. One more." Her voice was calm, almost soothing. I don't know what possessed me to nod. Maybe it was the rain outside, maybe it was her eyes locked on mine, daring me without words. Either way, I heard myself say, "Fine. One more." Her smile turned softer this time, less mischievous and more tender. She picked up a small brush, dipped it into a pot of warm brown powder, and leaned in. "This will just bring out your eyes a little more," she murmured. I sat frozen as the brush swept across my lids. The sensation was feather-light, almost ticklish, and I had to fight the urge to blink. She worked with surprising care, tilting my chin this way and that, humming under her breath like she was painting on a canvas. When she finished, she held up the mirror again. I blinked. My breath caught. The difference was undeniable now. My eyes looked bigger, brighter, like they belonged to someone who carried secrets. The face staring back wasn't mine, but it wasn't a stranger either. It was some in-between version of me, familiar, yet uncharted. She leaned close to my ear. "You don't see it yet, do you?" "See what?" I asked weakly. "The part of you that's been waiting for this." Her words landed like lightning. I tore my gaze from the mirror, shaking my head quickly. "That's not, no. You're reading too much into it." But my voice cracked. And she heard it. She didn't press, though. She just sat back, her smile soft and patient, like she was content to wait me out. Minutes passed. The rain hammered on the glass. My reflection wouldn't let me go. Finally, with a shaky laugh, I muttered, "Okay, maybe it doesn't look terrible." Her grin returned. "That's practically a compliment." I tried to look annoyed, but the truth was, I couldn't stop glancing back at the mirror. My stomach twisted, but there was something else too, something dangerously close to excitement. She clapped her hands suddenly, breaking the tension. "All right. Final challenge. Lip balm. Nothing fancy. Just clear gloss. And then I swear I'm done." I groaned. "You said one more. And this is it. The grand finale. No color. No tricks. Just shine. Please." She tilted her head, pouting dramatically. I should have said no. Every nerve screamed at me to say no. But instead, I found myself sighing and mumbling, "Fine. Last one." She squealed triumphantly, then leaned forward with the little tube in hand. My pulse raced as she tilted my chin up gently. The balm glided across my lips, cool and slick, and for a moment all I could focus on was her closeness, her steady breathing, the way her fingers lingered just long enough to make me shiver. "There," she whispered, pulling back to admire her work. "Perfect." I looked into the mirror again. And for the first time, I didn't laugh. I didn't shake my head or make a joke. I just stared. My lips glistened faintly, catching the glow of the fairy lights strung across her wall. My eyes sparkled darker, framed in a way I never thought possible. My skin, softer somehow. The person looking back wasn't me. And yet, it was. I exhaled slowly, unable to tear my gaze away. "I don't even know what to say." She smiled softly, her voice almost a whisper. "Then don't. Just look. Just feel it." So I did. For the first time in my life, I let myself feel what it was like to be seen differently. To look different. To wonder if maybe, just maybe, this version of me had been hiding all along. The storm outside raged on. But inside, something new had been born. And I knew, deep down, there was no going back. The morning after the storm, I woke up uneasy. Not because of the rain, it had cleared overnight, but because of the image still burned in my mind. That reflection. The faint eyeliner. The shimmer on my lips. I told myself it was just a silly experiment, a one-time thing. A favor for a friend. That's all. But all through the day, I kept catching phantom glimpses of that face. In the glare of a shop window. In the reflection of my phone screen. I'd blink and it was gone, replaced by my normal self, but the echo lingered. By the time the weekend rolled around, I wasn't sure if I was dreading or anticipating seeing her again. When I showed up at her apartment, she greeted me with her usual smile. But the moment her eyes flicked over me, I knew she hadn't forgotten. "Well, look who survived their first makeover," she teased, stepping aside to let me in. I groaned. "Don't start." She grinned. "Relax. You were a good sport." And she leaned closer, dropping her voice, "You looked incredible." The words sent heat rushing up my neck. I shrugged it off quickly, pretending to study her shelves of mismatched mugs. "Yeah, well, that was just for fun." Her voice softened. "Was it?" I turned to glare at her, but she only smiled knowingly and went back to arranging snacks on the counter. That was her way, never pushing too hard, just planting seeds. And the worst part? Those seeds were growing faster than I could stop them. We settled into our usual routine: pizza, movies, laughter. But the air between us had shifted. Every so often she'd glance at me with that glimmer in her eyes, like she was waiting for something. Eventually, she broke the silence. "So, hypothetically," I groaned. "Here we go." She laughed. No, listen. Hypothetically, if I did give you a full makeover, like clothes and everything, what's the worst that could happen? I nearly choked on my soda. Clothes? No way. Why not? She asked, leaning her chin on her hand, studying me. Because, my voice faltered. The answer seemed obvious, but when I tried to say it, the words tangled. Because it's embarrassing. Because it means something I'm not ready to admit. Because what if I like it too much? She didn't let me off the hook. Because you're afraid, she finished for me. I glared, but my heart skipped. I'm not afraid. Then prove it, she said lightly, almost like a joke. But her eyes didn't waver. I shifted uncomfortably. You're ridiculous. And you're stalling, she teased. Then she leaned back, a playful smile tugging at her lips. It's fine. I'll wait. That line again. I'll wait. The rest of the evening passed in a blur, but I couldn't shake her words. By the time I left her apartment, the thought had taken root. What would it be like? To go further. To let her choose. To let go. The next time I came over, she was ready. I should have known the moment I saw the garment bag hanging on the back of her chair. I tried to ignore it, but it loomed in the corner of my eye like a secret waiting to spill. Finally, I cracked. What's in the bag? She smirked. Oh, that. Just options. Options. I repeated warily. Don't panic. I didn't buy anything. Just pulled a few old things out of my closet. Clothes I don't really wear anymore. She shrugged innocently, though her grin betrayed her. I thought maybe you'd want to try. My stomach dropped. You thought wrong. Did I? She asked softly. I opened my mouth to argue, but nothing came out. Because the truth was, part of me had been waiting for this. Dreading it, yes, but also waiting. She didn't press further. She just left the bag where it was, sipping her drink and humming along to the music. And the longer it hung there, the harder it became to ignore. Finally, I muttered, "You're impossible." She grinned. "And you're curious." I didn't deny it this time. She didn't bring up the bag again that night. She didn't need to. It sat there like a dare, silent but heavy, while we pretended to watch a movie neither of us paid much attention to. Halfway through, she paused the screen and stretched, glancing toward the chair. "You know," she said casually, "you could make this a lot easier on yourself if you just tried something. Once. Then you can stop wondering." I stiffened. "I'm not wondering." Her smirk told me she didn't believe me. "Right. That's why you've been staring at it for the last half hour." I looked away quickly. "You're imagining things." "Am I?" Her tone was playful, but her eyes were sharp, seeing too much. She leaned back against the couch, folding her arms. "Okay. Let's make it fair. If you try something on, even just for 5 minutes, I'll drop the subject forever." I hesitated. "Forever?" "Forever," she promised, holding up her hand like an oath. It was a trap. I knew it was a trap. But the words dangled in the air, tempting me. 5 minutes. That's all. A small price to pay for peace of mind. With a nervous laugh, I muttered, "You're relentless." She beamed. "I'll take that as a yes." Before I could change my mind, she jumped up and unzipped the bag. My stomach flipped as she pulled out the contents: a soft sweater the color of blush roses, a pleated skirt, and a pair of black tights. Nothing outrageous. Just gentle. Feminine without being flashy. She held them up with a flourish. Tardier. Easy. Comfortable. Pretty. Pretty. I repeated, My voice strangled. She nodded, eyes sparkling. That's the goal. I shook my head quickly. No way. Not that. She tilted her head. Then pick one. Sweater, skirt, or tights. Baby steps. I stared at the options, my pulse thundering in my ears. My instinct screamed to refuse. But another part of me, the part one hated to admit, was curious. What would it feel like? Would it change me the way the eyeliner had? Finally, with a shaky breath, I muttered, the sweater. That's it. Her smile softened. Good choice. She handed it to me and gestured toward the bathroom. Go on. I took it reluctantly, my fingers trembling against the fabric. It was softer than I expected, almost silky, with a faint scent of her perfume clinging to it. Inside the bathroom, I stared at my reflection for a long moment. My hoodie hung shapeless on me, familiar, safe. The sweater felt like a challenge, waiting in my hands. I almost backed out. Almost opened the door and handed it back. But instead, I pulled the hoodie off and slid the sweater over my head. The fabric hugged me differently. Not tight, but close enough to remind me it wasn't mine. The sleeves fell longer, brushing my hands, and the neckline rested gently against my collarbone. When I looked up at the mirror, my breath caught. It wasn't drastic. It wasn't even much. But paired with the faint memory of eyeliner still haunting my imagination, the change was undeniable. Softer. Lighter. Different. I swallowed hard, fingers brushing the hem nervously, and opened the door. She looked up from the couch and froze. For a moment, she didn't say anything. Just stared, her lips parting slightly in surprise. Then, slowly, a smile spread across her face. Wow, she whispered. See? I knew it. I shifted awkwardly, tugging at the sleeves. It's just a sweater. It's not just anything, she said firmly, standing to circle me like she was studying art. It's you. Or at least, a part of you you've never met before. I rolled my eyes, but heat rushed up my neck. You're ridiculous. Maybe, she teased. But I'm not wrong. I tried to glare, but her smile was too warm, too sincere. She wasn't mocking me. She wasn't laughing. She was proud. And against my better judgment, that pride felt good. She stepped back, tilting her head thoughtfully. You need a name. A name? I repeated, startled. Of course. Every look deserves a name. Something soft, something that fits this version of you. Her eyes sparkled as she tapped her chin in mock concentration. How about? She paused dramatically. Lena. I groaned. Absolutely not. Why not? It suits you. It doesn't. It does, she insisted, grinning. Say it. Hi, I'm Lena. I shook my head firmly. No way. But she just laughed, flopping back onto the couch. Fine. Don't say it. I'll say it for you. Lena. The name hung in the air, light but heavy, like a spell. I tried to shrug it off, but a part of me, deep down, whispered that she was right. That night, long after I left her apartment, I lay awake replaying everything. The sweater. The look in her eyes. The name. Lena. I told myself it was silly. Just a game. Nothing real. But when I finally drifted to sleep, I dreamed of the mirror. And the reflection staring back at me wasn't the old me at all. It was Lena. The next time I came over, she didn't bother hiding her intentions. The sweater had been a beginning, and we both knew it. Now, the garment bag was gone. Instead, a neat pile of folded clothes waited on the chair: sweaters, skirts, even a delicate scarf draped across the top. Like an invitation I wasn't sure I could refuse. I froze in the doorway. "You've been busy." She grinned. "Preparation is key." "For what?" "For Lena," she said easily, like it was the most natural thing in the world. I groaned. "Stop calling me that." Her eyes sparkled. "Then stop looking so much like her." I opened my mouth to argue, but the words tangled in my throat. Because the truth was, I had been looking. Every morning, every night, I'd catch myself in the mirror and tilt my head just slightly, trying to catch a glimpse of that other me. That Lena she kept teasing out of me. And I hated how much I wanted to see her again. She must have read it in my silence because her smile softened. "Hey, don't overthink it. We're just playing. Remember?" "Playing," I repeated. "Exactly." She patted the pile of clothes. "So let's play." My heart thudded. What if? I hesitated, chewing my lip. What if I don't look right? What if I look ridiculous? She tilted her head. "Then we laugh. And we eat pizza. And life goes on." Her answer was so simple, so safe, that the knot in my chest loosened just enough for me to nod. "Fine. But if I look stupid, it's your fault." "Deal," she said brightly. She picked out the outfit with care, a soft cardigan, a flowing skirt, and the scarf to tie it all together. Nothing loud. Nothing mocking. Just gentle, comfortable, kind. In the bathroom, I stared at myself as I changed piece by piece. Each step felt like peeling back a layer of armor I hadn't realized I was wearing. The cardigan brushed my skin differently than my hoodies ever had. The skirt swayed when I moved, light and strange but not unpleasant. And the scarf, well, the scarf made me pause. It was the first thing I'd ever worn that felt pretty. When I stepped back into the living room, my face burned. My hands kept tugging at the hem of the skirt as though I could make it vanish. She looked up, and her breath caught. For once, she didn't tease. She didn't joke. She just stared, eyes wide, lips parted. Then, slowly, she smiled. "Oh, Lena," she whispered. "Don't," I muttered quickly, heat rising to my ears. But she stood, stepping closer. "I mean it. Look at you." I tried to roll my eyes, but when she guided me toward the mirror, I couldn't fight her. And there she was. Not perfect. Not polished. But undeniably different. My shoulders looked softer. My posture uncertain yet lighter. The scarf framed my face in a way that almost made me believe the girl in the glass had always been there, waiting. I exhaled slowly. "I don't hate it." She laughed, delighted. "That's progress." I frowned at my reflection. "It's weird. Like I'm not me anymore." Her voice was gentle. "Or maybe you're more you than you've ever been." The words sank deep, unsettling yet comforting all at once. We spent the evening in that in-between space. She guided me through small things, how to walk so the skirt flowed, how to hold my shoulders back, how to tilt my head when I laughed. At first, I resisted, rolling my eyes, muttering about how silly it was. But somewhere between her corrections and her laughter, something shifted. I started enjoying it. The way the skirt brushed against my legs when I moved. The way the scarf framed my face. The way she looked at me not with mockery, but with pride, as if she was watching something bloom. And then there was the name. She used it more freely now, sprinkling it into conversation like it belonged to me. At first, every time she said Lena, I flinched. But as the night wore on, the sting dulled. By the end, I found myself answering without protest. When I caught myself smiling at that, my heart lurched. This was supposed to be a joke. A game. A silly experiment. But when I caught her watching me with that soft, almost tender expression, I realized it wasn't a game anymore. Something real was happening. And for the first time, I wasn't sure I wanted it to stop. Later that night, after we'd eaten and half-watched a movie neither of us were really paying attention to, I found myself fiddling with the edge of the scarf. It had become a nervous habit over the last couple of hours, twisting the fabric between my fingers, tugging at it, then smoothing it again. Like I couldn't decide if I wanted to take it off or never let it go. She noticed, of course. She always noticed. "Careful," she said softly. "You'll stretch it out." I dropped my hands into my lap. "Sorry. No need to apologize. She hesitated, studying me. "I don't think you realize how good it looks on you." My throat tightened. Compliments like that always landed in a strange place inside me, half thrilling, half terrifying. "You're exaggerating." She shook her head. "Not even a little." I turned away, pretending to focus on the movie. But my reflection on the darkened screen caught my eye instead. There I was again, shoulders wrapped in a cardigan, scarf framing my face, skirt draped over my knees. And for the first time, I didn't immediately recoil. For the first time, I thought, maybe she's right. The silence stretched, heavy but not uncomfortable. Then she said, almost casually, "Do you want me to teach you more? About makeup, I mean." My heart jolted. More? Yeah. Tonight was just the basics. We didn't even get to eyeshadow. Or eyeliner. Or, she trailed off, watching me carefully. "Unless that's too much." I swallowed hard. The idea scared me. But the thought of saying no scared me more. "I don't know if I'd be any good at it," I admitted. She smiled. "That's the point. I'll show you." I hesitated. "Why are you doing this?" Her answer came without hesitation. "Because I like seeing you happy." The words hit me like a soft punch to the chest. I stared at her, searching her face for a trace of teasing, but there was none. Just honesty. I looked away quickly, heat rising in my cheeks. When she brought out the makeup bag again, I didn't resist. Not this time. She had me sit near the lamp, tilting my chin this way and that as she worked. The brush strokes were gentle, her hands steady, her breath brushing against my skin when she leaned close. I tried to focus on the mechanics, the way the powder tickled, the cool glide of the pencil, but it was impossible to ignore the way my heart pounded. And then she said it again, softly, almost like a secret. "You're beautiful." I laughed awkwardly. "Stop." "I mean it," she insisted. "You don't see it yet. But I do." Her certainty rattled me more than anything. Because deep down, I wanted to believe her. When she finally handed me the mirror, I braced myself. And yet, the reflection staring back at me didn't feel like an imposter anymore. Sure, the jawline was still too sharp, the shoulders a little too broad, the edges not entirely softened. But the eyes, they sparkled in a way I'd never seen before. The scarf framed a face that looked, if not feminine, then at least delicate. Softer. Different. For the first time, I didn't just see a costume. I saw possibility. My lips parted. "That's Umi." She nodded, smiling gently. "That's you." I couldn't look away. A laugh bubbled out of me, nervous, disbelieving, but real. I look. I don't know. Like I belong somewhere else. She tilted her head. Or maybe you belong right here. Something in her tone made me glance at her. She wasn't teasing. She wasn't joking. She was just looking at me. Like she saw something I didn't. And for a heartbeat too long, neither of us moved. Underscore 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 underscore. That night, when I finally changed back into my regular clothes, the air felt heavier. The hoodie clung differently. The jeans felt rough, unwelcoming. I didn't say anything, but I think she knew. As I slipped on my shoes, she leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed, a small smile tugging at her lips. "You'll be back," she said softly. I rolled my eyes. "Don't sound so sure." She grinned. "I don't have to sound sure. I can see it." And the worst part was, she was right. Because even as I stepped out into the cool night air, the only thing I could think about was the scarf I'd left behind, and the girl in the mirror who felt like she might be waiting for me to come back. I didn't plan to go back. At least, that's what I told myself. For a couple of days I buried the scarf in the back of my mind and drowned myself in work. But every time I passed a mirror or caught my reflection in a window, something tugged at me. That version of me, the one she'd brought out with her gentle hands and careful words, kept haunting me. It was like once the door had opened, I couldn't shut it again. By the third day, I caved. I texted her. Just something small. "Hey, you home?" Her reply came fast. "Always. Come over." I stared at the screen for a long moment, my stomach twisting. I should have deleted the message. Pretended it never happened. Instead, I grabbed my keys. She greeted me at the door with that knowing smile that always seemed to cut through my defenses. "Took you long enough," she teased, stepping aside to let me in. I rolled my eyes, trying to play it cool. "I wasn't planning on." "Of course not," she interrupted, smirking. "You just accidentally ended up here." I wanted to argue, but she was right. And we both knew it. This time there was no small talk. No pretending. She led me to her room, where the makeup bag was already waiting on the desk. My pulse jumped at the sight of it. "You knew I'd come back," I muttered. She shrugged. "Casual." I hoped. Something in her tone made me look at her. Really look. She wasn't just humoring me. She wasn't teasing for the sake of it. She genuinely wanted this. Wanted me like this. And that realization shook me. We didn't rush. She worked slowly, carefully, almost reverently. When she draped a new scarf around my shoulders, I didn't flinch. When she pulled out a soft blouse and held it up against me, I didn't protest. Piece by piece, layer by layer, I watched myself shift again. And with each change, something inside me unraveled. When she finished, she didn't hand me the mirror right away. She just looked at me, her eyes warm, searching. "You're glowing," she whispered. I swallowed hard. "Stop saying things like that." "Why?" "Because," my voice cracked. I dropped my gaze, hands curling into fists. "Because it's not real." Her brow furrowed. "What do you mean?" "This," I said, gesturing at myself. "The clothes, the makeup, the whatever this is. It's just pretend." She stepped closer, her voice steady. Does it feel pretend to you? I opened my mouth, but no words came. Because the truth was, it didn't. It felt more real than anything had in a long time. Something inside me snapped. I don't know who I am anymore, I blurted, my chest tight. I look in the mirror and I don't hate it, and that scares me. Because I'm not supposed to want this. I'm not supposed to. My voice broke, tears stinging my eyes. Like it. Her expression softened. She reached for me, but I pulled back, shaking my head. You don't get it, I whispered. If I let myself want this, if I let myself be this person, what does that make me? Who does that make me? The room went silent except for my uneven breathing. Finally, she said gently, it makes you, you. The simplicity of it gutted me. I laughed bitterly, swiping at my eyes. You make it sound so easy. It's not easy, she admitted. But it's honest. And maybe that's what you've been missing. Her words lingered, wrapping around me tighter than any scarf ever could. And then she did something I didn't expect. She took my hands firmly, so I couldn't pull away, and pressed them to her chest, right over her heartbeat. Do you feel that? She asked softly. I nodded, shaky. That's real. Just like this moment. Just like you. Nothing about this is fake unless you decide it is. I stared at her, my vision blurring. My defenses crumbled piece by piece, until all that was left was raw, terrified honesty. I don't know if I can do this, I whispered. She squeezed my hands. You already are. The dam broke then. I cried, messy, unguarded, the kind of crying that leaves you breathless. All the fear, the shame, the confusion I'd been carrying spilled out at once. And through it all, she held me. She didn't let go, didn't flinch, didn't laugh. She just stayed. When the storm finally passed, I felt hollow. But lighter, too. Like I'd finally admitted something I didn't even realize I'd been hiding from myself. I pulled back slowly, my cheek still wet, my voice barely a whisper. Why are you doing this for me? She smiled sadly. Because you deserve to see yourself the way I see you. My chest ached. Because in that moment, I almost believed her. Later, when she finally handed me the mirror, I braced for the usual mix of shock and discomfort. But this time, something was different. The person looking back at me wasn't just a stranger. She wasn't just a mask. She was me. Or at least, a version of me I could maybe, possibly learn to accept. And that terrified me. But it thrilled me too. For the first time, I whispered it out loud. Not to her. Not to the room. Just to myself. Maybe this is who I am. And even though the words were fragile, shaky, they didn't break me. They set me free. The ride home that night was quiet. The makeup was gone, she'd wiped it away gently, leaving only the faintest trace of eyeliner clinging stubbornly to the corners of my eyes. The scarf was folded neatly in my lap, its soft fabric still warm from being worn. But even stripped bare, I didn't feel the same. Every stoplight, every reflection in the window, felt like a reminder. I couldn't unsee it anymore. That other version of me wasn't a fantasy or a joke. She was there, lingering beneath the surface, waiting. And for the first time, I wasn't sure I wanted to keep her hidden. When I got home, I stood in front of the bathroom mirror. The same plain reflection I'd always known stared back. But I didn't hate it. Because now, I could almost imagine the softness, the color, the light in my eyes when she had finished with me. I touched the scarf gently, pressing it against my cheek, and a quiet smile tugged at my lips. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't permanent. But it was mine. Over the next few days, life moved on. Work, errands, conversations that had nothing to do with secrets or transformations. But beneath it all, something subtle had shifted. I caught myself paying attention to things I never had before: lip balm at the checkout aisle, the way fabric flowed on strangers passing me by, the quiet elegance in details I used to ignore. And every night, before bed, I'd pull out the scarf and drape it over my shoulders. Just for a moment. Just to remember. A week later, she texted me again. "Movie night." I hesitated for only a second before replying. "Only if you promise not to ambush me with eyeliner this time." Her reply was instant. "No promises." I laughed, really laughed, the kind that shook something loose inside me. And without thinking too hard, I grabbed the scarf from its usual place and tied it loosely around my neck before heading out the door. Not because she asked me to, but because I wanted to. That night wasn't dramatic. We watched movies, ate popcorn, argued about the best actors like we always did. But there was a new ease between us. No games. No pretending. Just acceptance. At one point, during a quiet scene, she leaned against me and whispered, "You know, you don't need my makeup bag to be beautiful." I froze, my heart thudding. "Stop saying things like that." She tilted her head, smiling softly. "Why? One day, you're going to believe me." I didn't answer. I couldn't. But I let her words sink in. And for once, I didn't push them away. Later, walking home under the glow of streetlights, the scarf brushing against my collarbone, I realized something important. This wasn't about becoming someone else. It was about uncovering parts of myself I'd been too scared to see. Maybe I wasn't ready to define what that meant. Maybe I didn't have to. For now, it was enough to know that when I looked in the mirror, I could imagine something new. Something softer. Something freer. And that was the beginning. As I slipped inside my apartment and set the scarf on the dresser, I caught my reflection one last time. For the first time in my life, I didn't look away. Instead, I whispered the words I was still learning to believe. "You're beautiful." And for the first time, I almost believed it.